Absolutely. And to kind of touch on what Fabian was saying, which he's extremely accurate, and talking to scouts as well and other ball clubs, it is a huge gap now between AAA and the big leagues. So it wouldn't really serve him well if he does go down to AAA and let's say he dominates, because now AAA is made up of a lot of young guys. Back 15, 20, 30 years ago, AAA, we had guys 4 or 5 years, 6 years with big league experience, still trying to hang on and playing AAA baseball. And it was an elite level of baseball when you had guys that had experience, knew how to work counts as a hitter, or on the flip side as a pitcher, knew how to actually pitch because they've had a lot of big league experience. So it wouldn't serve Roki that well to go down to AAA. I will say this. You're right, Doug. When you are at the big league level and the bright lights are on, and we saw him excel in the playoffs last year and really save us. He did save us. We didn't have a closer. He went out and became our closer, and he saved us. We don't win the World Series without Roki Sasaki. So hopefully he takes some of that energy once he sees Dodger Stadium, and now we know this counts, and he excels and does his thing and has great outings. Now, if he does stumble, 2 or 3 or 4 starts, they're going to probably take a look at, in my opinion, my humble opinion, looking at him as a hitter is delivery. I think he has more of a closer's delivery. He's got that high leg kick coming from a stop. Now, if you look at Shohei Ohtani, you look at a guy like Yamamoto, maybe a guy like Pedro Martinez, David Cone back in the day. They had that windup and it was smooth and they would have a leg kick. Maybe he experiments with that where he doesn't have to work so hard. I think every pitch is a grind because he's coming from a dead stop and he has that huge high leg kick a la D-Train. Now, D-Train had that high leg kick, but if you go back when he was really successful and he was an elite pitcher back in the day, he had that long windup and then he brought that leg kick up. Doc Gooden back in the day, he had that long windup, and then he brought that leg kick up. It wasn't really from a dead stop. So maybe that is the last phase of his development. Figure out a way to have a windup to go along with that leg kick so he doesn't have to work so hard. But again, like I said earlier, maybe it is pitching at the big level. He needs the bright lights, and he is able to find his delivery here in his first few starts in the regular season.
Yeah, there's certainly moving parts in those mechanics. I look at the NPB numbers, though, in the velocity and the NPB when those mechanics were similarly in line, and the velocity was consistently 98 to 102 in that range. Fabian, it looked like there was a pretty significant dip in velocity in his last outing. What do you make of that?
I think there's also something to, like, that was a long first inning, and it's sort of building off from that. Like, the first inning, the velocity was up, and then I think the velocity was down as things went down. So I wasn't sure there's maybe something to fatigue after that first inning that took something out of him, or maybe taking something off, just trying to find some sort of semblance of fastball command. But yeah, it's one of those things that I think the velocity is going to be really important for Roki Sasaki. But at the end of the day, if he's not throwing strikes like that, that's the biggest issue above all.
It feels like he just needs that coming out party at the big league level. And if he has that, and then it just snowballs, and all of a sudden everything is positive momentum for Roki. And that is the hope. As far as how this rotation lines up to start the year, you got Yoshi on the bump today, going to be against Zach Gallen. Emmett Sheehan is going Friday, then Tyler Glasnow on Saturday. You got the day off on Sunday. We'll see Roki on Monday, and then Shohei Ohtani on Tuesday. The first part of the season, you get the off day on Sunday, and then you get the 3-game series against the Guardians, 3 straight Thursdays off. So the way this rotation lines up, I think the Justin Robleski kind of tip in all this is really interesting. Fabian, do you see him kind of being used as that 6th starter, a swingman maybe after they get through this first portion of the season? Just kind of what's the outlook for Robo to start the year?
Yeah, he's going to be that 6th starter once they need a 6th starter, which is going to be for a little while. But until then, he's going to be sort of that swingman type guy. We saw him come in after Ohtani in that last Freeway Series game and look dominant. I think that he's also a guy who is, in a way, insurance for Roki Sasaki. If he has another outing where he has to get pulled out from an inning early, he's a guy who can help bridge some innings when you really need him to. So that's one of the luxuries the Dodgers have with Ohtani's roster spot, where they can essentially carry an extra pitcher, and Robleski is essentially serving as insurance for if a guy can't go long early on in the season, especially a guy like a Roki Sasaki.
Yeah, and in their first 18 games, they would only have to use a pitcher on 4 days rest twice. You got Emmett Sheehan and some younger pitchers in there. When you look at kind of the X factor for this rotation outside of maybe a Roki Sasaki, what he could be, I feel like Glasnow didn't really get talked about a lot during spring training. I think that's a really, really good thing because let's not forget, this is a guy that is your opening day starter for most teams around the league. Feels like Jerry, that Glasnow is just found a really good place for the mechanics, and he added some strength, and it just feels like he's in a really, really, really solid place to start the year.
Yeah, I think he's an incredible spot. I think this is the best I've seen him look since he's put on that Dodger uniform. I love the fact he added weights, good weight, about 10, 12 pounds. He knows he's stronger, and he feels more confident in his delivery. And anytime a player is confident with his stuff, he usually has an incredible season. So I think he is that X factor because he's got incredible stuff. But we're going to need guys, especially now that Blake Snell is out. Hopefully he comes back in about 6 weeks or so. But we need guys to make sure they eat up innings because we saw last year, guys, our bullpen didn't have the best of seasons. And part of that was, obviously they had so much stressful innings in the years prior, especially in the playoffs of 2024. And I think that kind of carried over, but they were asked to eat up so many innings early on. I think at one point they were leading baseball in innings pitched in the first half. That can't happen, guys. That can't happen. So we need guys like Sheehan. We need guys like Tyler Glasnow. In my opinion, both those guys are the X factor to not only pitch well, but to give us innings and hopefully give us 6, possibly 7 strong innings to make sure our bullpen is not taxed. So, yes, Glasnow, I think, is poised for a big year. I really believe his confidence has soared, especially the way he pitched in the postseason last year. And him coming out and pitching in Game 6 out of the bullpen, who helped us big time and helped us win that game to have a 7th game. So Glasnow is certainly one of the X factors in that rotation.
Yeah, and Fabian, last year, the talk early on the season was Glasnow kind of adjusting those mechanics, trying to take less pressure off the elbow. Have you seen a difference year to year in those mechanics?
I haven't noticed that much of a specific difference in the mechanics or watching to the naked eye. I've noticed a difference in how he's talked about the mechanics and the fact that he's not necessarily worrying about them as much anymore, which I think the Dodgers people are the happiest about. Like they are glad that he's not thinking about his delivery out there. He's just thinking about competing. And that's sort of one of those things that his first couple of years with the Dodgers, they can repeatedly stress as much as possible. Like, hey, this is a guy who just has some of the best stuff in the world. He needs to worry less about like what his delivery looks like and more just going out there and competing with what he has, because that's plenty good enough. And we've seen that the spring where he's not really worrying as much about that. And all of a sudden the delivery and mechanics and everything looks great. The stuff looks great. And Dave Roberts said this is the best they've ever seen him. And I think part of it is because he's less in his head about pitch to pitch, making sure my arm is doing this, my leg kick's doing this, my timing is this. It's more just like, hey, here's what I have, go hit it. And that's what he's done really well. And I think that's going to serve him well over the course of the season. And I think it's one of those things where if you're not thinking about every single little thing, maybe you're not feeling your elbow as much or your shoulder as much. And maybe he's able to have more of a durability than he's had in the years past.